All right. So, the podcast has started, by the way. My exasperation is part of the podcast. Let it be known that it is part of the canon of the show. We had a whole plan for next week. We're going to cover the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. We're going to get the episode out. We probably are going to record on a different day. I don't know. We haven't figured that part out yet. We'll get there. We're going to talk about it. But we're going to get it out to you guys as quickly as we can. Turn the episode around. Turn and burn. Get that thing out. Let's do it. Because we thought, well, this week we'll talk about Xenoblade X, because Xenoblade X came out last week, and this will give us time to have played it, because, like, I think I had the most time in it, and I had 4 fucking hours, so, like, it wasn't exactly a ton of time in a game that could easily span over 100 hours. So it's like, well, week 2, we should have had some time in it. We can get a little bit more detailed about what's different from the Wii U version and the Switch version beyond just superficial stuff and that kind of vibe for it. And Nintendo said, you shall not, because Nintendo announced Tuesday. No, Monday. Wednesday. No, it was Wednesday.
Yeah,
Holy
it's just
shit.
the day before.
They announced Wednesday that the rumored Nintendo Direct for this week was real. Now, when that rumor came out, we all laughed because that sounded stupid, because the Switch 2 Direct is next Tuesday. Or Wednesday. Nintendo said, fuck you, it's real. And then we had a Switch Direct today. So we're thinking to ourselves, well, certainly there won't be a bunch of stuff that demands our immediate attention. And Nintendo said, aha, what if this Direct is weird as hell? And then they did that. And this Direct was weird as hell. So, hi, I'm James Jones, and Nintendo does it to us at least once a year, and today's the day. How are you, John Lindemann?
Pretty good, James. Thank you very much.
I'm glad to hear it. Greg, how are you doing?
I continue to exist.
Guillaume, congratulations on receiving both Tomodachi Life and SaGa 2 Remastered.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pretty good day in that respect, and I leave it at that.
I want to point out people who don't go to the NWR Discord. At some point this week, I believe Guillaume made a joke about this Direct, that it was going to be nothing but SaGa remakes.
I made it on the Blue Sky.
On the Blue Sky,
yeah,
okay.
I was like under or over 3 SaGa Remaster games. Turns out it was only 1, so under. But they have been known to announce 2 or 3 SaGa games at a
Yes.
time. So it was not completely out of the, like, it had some basis and some expectations that I had, and I'm not at all surprised that we got at least 1.
The Kawazu pipeline remains entirely open, isn't it? It's like you think about
it's a busted valve.
How long you can go without remasters of other prominent Square things. I mean, obviously there was a long time before we eventually got Chrono Cross. Chrono Trigger's been a long time now. I know they did, when the anniversary came, they did say something about, stay tuned for things like beyond the game, but I mean,
it's going to be a fucking art book. It's going to be like an art book.
Art books, more. They've
digital
released
art books.
They've released the soundtrack a bunch of different times, like like with a DVD, and then there was one with a Blu-ray. Like maybe 4K Blu-ray now, right? I'm not that optimistic, but at the same, because of Kawazu's entrenched position in the Square Enix hierarchy, I think it's much more bankable, isn't it, for SaGa related things to come back.
It's funny because, like, sometimes we see the Square Enix heads, like, I don't know, like, just saying, like, yeah, we're pivoting away from, like, for a while they were just funding and releasing a bunch of small, new, unknown, new franchises, like, that they were
games about mazes. They released like 3 of those back to back.
Sure, or like, what was it? Not Diorama.
The board game run.
Anyway, like, there was like some Dio Field Chronicles
or
something.
Dio Field Chronicles. Voice of Cards.
Yeah.
And then there was the one that was like a board game that seemed an awful lot like Voice of Cards that released on like the same day because nobody talks to anybody
that's the
at that
thing.
company.
Like here are like 8 of these new franchises you've never heard of before, and we're releasing them all in the same week or the same day, or at the very least the same month. It's like, so yeah, we're pivoting from that. Like we're gonna focus on our tent poles, and like no matter what they say, the one constant is that they keep releasing these remasters of SaGa games or new SaGa games of varying quality. So it's very weird.
That really weird as shit game that came out last year, was that a SaGa game?
The weirdest what?
There was a really odd Square Enix game that came out last year, and I want to say it was a SaGa game.
Well, there was like Emerald something.
Yeah,
Emerald.
Right? I'd be surprised if that isn't what James is thinking of.
Okay,
yes.
Yeah, because you played the demo and you were dumbfounded.
Emerald Beyond, there it is.
Right. So yes, that was a SaGa game, but like unlike most SaGa games, like it seems, I don't really know anything about it, so I can't speak about it.
You should play the demo, is my recommendation.
So just like, let's get this out of the way right now. I've never played SaGa Frontier. I think maybe it's not one of the poorly regarded ones. I think people...
No, it was liked.
Yeah, okay.
It was liked.
So that's good. It's not Unlimited SaGa 2, which I think is infamous. But yeah, okay. So SaGa Frontier is supposed to be good. There's already a remaster of SaGa Frontier 1. I haven't played that either. The remaster thing, like if you look at the pictures that they've released, like they did the same thing. I've talked about Legend of Mana recently, and I talked about how weirdly high res the backgrounds were, and clearly, they had upscaled the backgrounds with AI. But I thought it looked pretty good. But I'm looking at some of the backgrounds in SaGa Frontier 2 remasters so far that they've shown, and you can see the AI-ness. You can see these pencil marks should not be there. Like the candles don't look that way. Anyway, like small things like that. So that's a little bit disappointing, but it's not the worst remaster job.
At least like what you mentioned, the Legend of Mana upscale or whatever. The pixel art characters like remain, so that at least is intact. Rather than if the pixel art characters were like smoothed or something, that would be really horrible at that point. But
and there was already kind of like a phone. A port of like a phone remake of Romancing Saga 2 and 3, and those had like they just looked wild. They just looked really weird. They had like very kind of retro but new effects added to them, like conflicting resolutions, it seemed, for various screens. And so I played Romancing Saga 3 in that form, and then they released re-released the remake of Romancing Saga 1 that was released first on PlayStation 2. They released that on Switch, and then last year a very, very well-regarded all-new remake of Romancing Saga 2 came out, and I just got that actually, so I'm going to be playing that soon. But I was surprised by the reception, the critical reception. But now we're back to kind of crummy remakes. No, remasters.
I'm interested in the Frontier games, but I haven't actually played any of them. But
you can play most of the Saga series on Switch at this point. So.
It's so stupid. Why? What Square Enix? Why? Why Saga? Like what does Kawazu
actually
have
maybe
on
like
you?
the Unlimited Saga games might be the only ones that are missing at this point.
Akitoshi Kawazu is involved in some kind of criminal activity.
This is clearly part of Square Enix's growth strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Growth to what?
They're trying to rope us all people who played the Final Fantasy Legend back in the day and have like some misplaced affection for it. We it's a good thing that the Switch is wrapping up, or we were going to end up with the remake of the Docomo NTT app or game for the Saga series. Like it just feels like it's inevitable at this point. All right, so nobody. You at home, you're going to lie and say you did, but nobody expected us to start with fucking Saga. But we did. We did that. And now we can move on.
I didn't even think I even introduced everybody. Greg, did I introduce you?
You asked how it was, so that
okay,
counts.
Good. All right. Did I introduce myself?
Yeah.
Okay, good. It's March 27th, by the way. I definitely didn't do that. And it's episode 920. Which is just menacing thought that, like, the half-year panic over, oh God, what are we going to do for 900? It's about to turn into a full-year panic of, oh God, what do you do for 1,000? You could start sending your ideas now, I guess. So, yeah, there was a direct today. And I may have already covered that. There's a lot in it. And I guess I'm just going to start with some of the stuff that they introed early. So there's a new the SOMNIUM Files game where your job is to help No Sleep for Kaname Date from the SOMNIUM Files, which makes it sound like it's like a spinoff. I don't know. Where you're going to rescue an online idol from what appears to be a trap room. Like it's Jigsaw, but it's in the weird SOMNIUM Files universe, so that's neat. That series is very weird, and I'm very happy it exists, and I will probably not play it, but that's okay.
Right now, at least one of the games in the series is dirt cheap.
Oh yeah,
so
they go on sale a lot.
Yeah. I just know that the very first of those games, I played the demo, and I went through that demo in such a way that I was missing vital information to complete it or know what was going on. And so that kind of turned me off the game immediately. I was like, well, if that can happen, if I can find the person who's trapped within not a tilt-a-world, what's the carousel? Anyway, without knowing like that I was looking for that person at all or like what's going on, it doesn't bode well for the full game.
Yeah, it's troubling. I got it dirt cheap and still haven't played it. I should. I need to. I just haven't. So I know the second game is pretty predicated on the first, some knowledge from the first one. I don't know about this one. It'd be good if they maybe said like, hey, we're resetting. You don't have to necessarily have played those games. It's the same world, but whatever. Speaking of, oh boy, more games in the same world. Did we know that Raido Kuzunoha versus the Soulless Army was getting a remake? Which, by the way,
So is this the second game in that 2-game series?
It might be, yeah, because I want to say like the first. Yes, I think so.
Oh, it's the third one in the Devil Summoner series, which
okay.
Did we only get 2? Anyway, whatever.
Yeah. So this one got a sequel called Raido Kuzunoha versus King Abaddon. Which I guess look forward to that in 2 years getting remastered. The remastered for this one is Raido Remastered, which is amazing. The Mystery of the Soulless Army, which is a much worse title than Devil Summoner: Raido Kuzunoha versus the Soulless Army. Why do I know about this game? Because its name is Raido Kuzunoha versus the Soulless Army. I heard that one time and it was in my brain forever. That's a beautiful, stupid title.
Sounds pretty self-explanatory to me. I mean,
like, what's it about? It's about Raido Kuzunoha and him fighting the Soulless Army. He's fighting a Soulless Army.
I mean,
what the fuck is the Soulless Army? Don't worry about it. If anything,
it's almost too simple.
Raido's got it covered. Don't worry about it.
It's very literal.
It was a 2006 PS2 game.
Yes.
Which is very late indeed.
It's very late.
Well,
yes.
I guess it's fitting that it should be coming to Switch at this stage then.
Oh, yeah.
20 years later. I mean, literally all I ever needed to know about that game was that it was called Raido Kuzunoha versus the Soulless Army. They really cheaped out by going with the Mystery of the Soulless Army. I don't want a fucking mystery. I want verses. Give it to me. Yeah. Sure. It's an action adventure game where you use the demons that you recruit to solve puzzles and fight enemies rather than a turn-based game. Otherwise, it's an SMT game. Weirdly, I want to say Koei published that game in Europe. Because fuck it, who cares?
A year later in 2007.
There you go. Great. Honestly, that's fast for a JRPG style game at that point in time. But yeah, I for whatever reason, I just had this back. Did Koei publish that? Not North America. Did they publish that somewhere else? Yeah. So yeah, we're going after the big hits in this direct. So like, let's talk about Patapon. There's Patapon, the Vita hit. So I actually thought those were Sony games. I didn't realize they weren't.
So you
I
say
thought they were
no?
too.
Actually, they were Sony games, weren't they? Yeah, that's the part of the big deal. First, it's not Vita; it's PSP.
PSP.
Yeah,
sorry, you're right.
That was
PSP.
one of those games that you heard about. You know, someone who didn't own. I eventually owned a PSP, but not like in that earlier period. And you know, that was one of the kind of exclusives that was talked about. This is Patapon 1 and 2 collected together. But yeah, you know, just the kind of weird kind of rhythm integration into, you know, the gameplay and everything. I never, when I did get around to getting a PSP, I didn't actually get these.
Yeah, it was published by Sony.
But it was developed by Japan Studios.
Yeah, and Pyramid, I guess. Yep.
And Pyramid,
Correct.
yeah. So,
but there was wasn't the golf game from later? You know, everybody's golf, hot shots, whatever you want to call that's Sony involved.
You're right.
As well,
it is.
right?
Yeah. So this was a thought that I had watching this direct. Like, I was like, okay, Sony is embracing the Switch at last, but not quite. I guess they're showing that
Bandai.
they're
this.
yeah, exactly. Like they kind of shed their franchises that they didn't really care to pursue. I guess outside of, I don't know. Like, I haven't played the what's that robot game? The new the platformer that people say is Nintendo, like Astrobot,
yeah.
right? So I haven't played Astrobot. Maybe there are references to Patapon and Everybody's Golf in there. I don't know, but yeah, like this is part of Sony history that they don't seem to want anymore. They got rid of their studios, so Bandai, I guess, was free to just go ahead and release this.
Holy shit. I am looking at the people who have made Everybody's Golf. It is all of it. So the first one's Camelot, because of course it was. In partnership with Japan Studios, who made them from 1997 to 2019. Then Clap Hands, which I can go through the history of Clap Hands, but yeah, it's a Sony second party that just makes things that start with everybody. And then like a website development mobile company. I don't know. And then now a company that doesn't even have a Wikipedia page. And again, Bandai Namco. What is like Sony?
I mean, like, they're releasing this on Switch, but it's also on Steam and
PS5. Not Xbox. Fuck Xbox. Android and iOS. But yeah, like very weird behavior from this part of these. And of course, Sony didn't get mentioned for either of these games. Because they seem to be very, like, distancing themselves from the fact they're doing it.
Well, I'm not sure if they're doing it. I think that they probably sold the rights to Bandai.
They just licensed it out, I would assume, right?
Yeah, I mean, so like Japan Studios was, quote, reorganized into Team Asobi and some other.
It's that like the Galactic Republic was reorganized.
Yeah.
Yes.
So now they're just probably a bunch of brands that
they are,
like, are IPs that can be licensed out.
Well, I mean, these are the owners of NAC, so like you're dealing with the top tier of the world.
Yeah.
Like that they were reorganized to more or less defunct. But I'm baffled. Baffled is the word. Some of the people have gone and started their own companies as a consequence. As Sean Layden said, that SIE Worldwide the chairman of SIE, that Japan Studio have been, quote, legacy malaise, having failed to recreate the successful game and lacked the experience to do so again. Eliminating all but Team Asobi was, quote, akin to trimming a bonsai. Okay. Sure. All right. That's probably not how you word things when you're talking about people you laid off. Just a thought, Sean. Just a thought, Sean Layden. Is he still there? No. He's a Tencent now. Of course he is. Cool. So yeah, those were surprising. I mean, definitely surprising. Patapon was surprising. Everybody's golf was less surprising, but like only because I didn't process that it was that golf game. Speaking of normal, very normal, why do you ask things? There's a Pac-Man side-scrolling grimdark action game.
Yeah, that we already knew. That was one of the things I was going to follow up. The gritty Pac-Man reboot that we've, what's that website that's the video game equivalent of The Onion?
Oh yeah, the hard drive.
The hard drive.
Yeah, it's a hard drive headline come to life. Essentially,
yes.
It doesn't mean it can't be entertaining on its own terms, I suppose. But yeah, this is the second time we've had a glimpse of that.
This comes out in July. This was like the day after they announced that Pac-Man's coming to the Super Monkey Ball game that came out. If you're wondering, he's just going to roll himself, right? No, of course not. They put him in the ball. Why?
That's so stupid.
Why?
That's
I don't
so
know.
Dumb. Oh my god.
Kozo's very into bananas for some reason.
Oh no!
Man.
So when you play as him, the pellets get changed to pellets.
Oh, okay. That's good. That's more effort than other characters that they've added.
Yeah, some guest characters they change, some they don't. If you play as a Dreamcast, I think they change to CDs. Yes, you can play as a Dreamcast in that fucked up game. And it's the Dreamcast in a ball.
I like to think those are, in particular, those are like the really easy to burn pirated discs that blighted the Dreamcast.
Obviously.
You're taking them all off the market by rolling over them.
We could act like this is really remarkable and weird, but from SaGa, it's nothing, right? Like, didn't they put the Daytona car in one of their fighters?
No,
I've seen the pictures.
That was God, who made that game? I know what you're talking about, but that was somebody else.
Oh, okay.
So that Super Monkey Ball game, I can't remember which one it is, has a bunch of guest characters. One of them is a lot of them are paid DLC. One of them is Game Gear. They did not change the bananas into AA batteries, which is a huge miss. But of course, the only one that matters is Suezo from Monster Rancher. Do you know Suezo from Monster Rancher? I bet you all know Suezo from Monster Rancher. Do you even know Monster Rancher? Probably not.
If you'd asked me on a different day, there's a decent chance I would have told you it's the developer of that Twin Peaks knockoff, Deadly Premonition.
I mean, I wish.
That's scary.
Fighters Mega Mix. It is a SaGa game.
Is it? Okay. All right.
Man,
Suezo is an eyeball with teeth and one little appendage that's oddly phallic that he bounces on. That's Suezo. You can play him as Monkey Ball. Fuck it. Who cares? Nobody. You can play as Miku, of course. Yeah, it's weird. It's a weird-ass game. But now this is our week of double weird Pac-Man. I'm thrilled for us. All right, we talked about it. Guillaume, there's a Tomodachi Life coming out called Tomodachi Plaza. It's coming out in June, so very close.
Yeah. June? I thought it was like in a year. Well, that's good.
June 27th. All right, I'm gonna read you.
Are you confusing Tamagotchi and
yes,
Tomodachi?
you are. That's the virtual pet Tamagotchi.
You're right. My mistake.
That's 2026, right?
I'm looking at notes I took, and I confused them. You're right. It is 2026. My mistake.
No, that really is one of the most interesting things about this whole presentation to me. Is just that we mentioned this last week, right? Xenoblade is out, so there are currently no games from Nintendo specifically, the first party published games with a release date. There's 2 games on the schedule: Metroid Prime 4 Beyond and Pokemon Legends, and they don't have specific dates. A week later, who would have thought you'd have a direct that would take over 30 minutes about Switch stuff.
36,
clear the deck, right, for the Switch 2 stuff. And that would still be true.
Yeah, you're right.
They announced stuff for 2026, no specific dates. They didn't give Metroid Prime 4 a date. They still haven't given Pokemon a date, even though we got a little update on that as well. So yeah, they announced some stuff, and we're still in that same
They're
position.
still like, but fuck you guys. All right, so I watched it live at work while I was doing stuff, and my girlfriend was watching it later, and so I'm just getting like blow by blows from her as she's watching it. So it's Pac-Man Metroidvania, yes. Villain Coffee Shop, yep, available now. Real-time Pokemon battles. Yep. Skipping through a few more of these. And then Old Man Me breakdancing, period. No additional comment. That's all I get. And I'm like, yep. It's correct. That's true. That was the thing that happened. This is a weird direct. It was consistently.
Well, I don't think it could ever be a normal one. Because there haven't been the major Nintendo presentations within 6 days of each other before, it's just...
None of us was expecting a mainline Mario game to show up on the
but
Switch
I certainly didn't expect...
No.
I didn't expect this, like, a segment to open with Old Man Me breakdancing, and like, okay, yeah, fuck it, here we are. That whole segment's a nightmare, by the way, because, I mean, literally at the end, there is a nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's in the title, Live in the Dream, right? Evidently, that's going to be some sort of gimmick involved in that. Just your characters.
But this is like a common scene in Tomodachi Life, the first one. Like
they had dreams
in
the first one, but I'm assuming the fact that it's going to be, obviously some of the reason why this is a late Switch game, presumably, is it's not very graphically intensive, but it's clearly got a lot fewer limitations than the 3DS game did, or indeed the unlocalized DS game that preceded it. So I guess they can just do some more full on stuff with the dream component now. I guess they got to figure some angle to sell it with.
The fact that it was also and this is the last game of the presentation, and then it's fucking Tomodachi Life, and I'm like, okay, sure. And then we got this weird trailer for that, because again, I mean, it's a weird game. They really played it up in this thing, and then we cut back to like, oh, we've got one more thing, and I'm like, yeah, I guess you really couldn't end with that Tomodachi Life segment. Imagine if the last shot of the direct had been that giant. Like, they'd just been like, yep, we're done. Peace out. Bye. I was like, that would have been truly surreal.
I like that. So I watched the US feed first, and then later I could not make it run to show Karen, so I showed her the UK feed. And the UK feed, the Tomodachis definitely have a British accent.
What?
So that's pretty funny. And she said something a little bit different, the giant woman. Instead of, you wanted to talk to me, it's like, you called or something. And, anyway, slightly different. But they've got accents. I found that fantastic. Now I need to test this game in French Canadian and see if they've got my accent down right.
This is like... That's a detail that they didn't need, because nobody really speaks like a human anyway, but also is totally believable that it's there.
Oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure that was true with the 3DS game. I had the 3DS game, and I'm pretty sure that, even though, they're not terribly organic voices, but I think it had a bit of, a more British style to the voices in the version that I played. And that's the thing. It's a strange one, isn't it? That whole sort of series, because again, the first game was not localized for DS. And I mean, it probably would have bombed if it had been, because by the time it would have come out in the West, the bottom was falling out of that DS market. So it kind of felt like, probably made the right call commercially on that one. And, it would have been a little bit of an upset for a future game to get localized, but it did, and it actually did pretty well, didn't it? Like, relative to what you would have expected. And but that was a long time ago now, right? I mean, I believe that was in 2014. I can remember playing that because the World Cup was on, the one where Germany won. So, that's got to be 2014. And it's just, to think that it seemed like it was, hey, this was like a minor sort of success story. And now it's been 11 years, and it'll be 12 by the time this actually comes out.
Yeah, I mean they called it the first new game in over 10 years.
You've had some related things come out. So it's like the Me RPG and the bloody, what was it called again? The app that was like a little bit in this vein.
Oh, Mitomo.
Mitomo, right? Yeah.
Right, and then you had Miitopia.
Miitopia was the RPG, yeah. So it's like you've had some kind of works in this vein and all that, but something's actually like an honest to God follow up. For it to take this long is kind of, it takes you back a little bit. But again, this is as Guillaume said, you're not going to get your mainline Mario in this direct. If you're going to get stragglers, if you're going to get these things that are, kind of overhangs, lagging around on a previous generation system, it's going to be maybe, this sort of thing. It's just you wouldn't have predicted this in particular, probably.
This kind of, yeah. Anyway, it's slightly off topic, but so I fill up these surveys to get points, to get air miles, basically. It's, I'm trying to get to Japan. I'm filling up a lot of surveys. But like twice now, at least, I've answered a Nintendo survey. At first, they don't announce themselves as, this is a Nintendo survey. They ask you, like, what devices do you use, like these consoles, which ones do you have? It starts occurring to me that this is specifically a Nintendo survey because they ask about the Wii U. And anyway, so the questions tend to veer towards like, so you say you own a Switch, huh? Would you own a second Switch? And like they never acknowledge the idea that there's going to be a Switch 2, so like I don't know if they include that in there, but like usually I answer no. But anyway, like clearly they're quizzing people to see like, so you Switch, you still play with that?
Oh yeah.
Like it kind of makes sense at this point when I see the content of this Nintendo Direct, like if they're planning to release games for 2026 for it. And they were also asking me like basically about all the, like, do you know these characters? Yeah, I know them all. But they're like all the characters basically in the Nintendo app, which we haven't talked about yet.
Yeah,
Nintendo
we'll get
today.
to it.
But yeah, like all of those. Like, do you know them? Yes, I do. Do you like them? Sure.
The SEGA used to send out surveys like this, but they were openly SEGA surveys, and they were also insane because like anytime you said you knew something, that added like 20 questions to the survey. So you would be like, "Do you know these franchises?" And it would be like every franchise SEGA's ever fucking released. And I'd be
and
like,
then,
yes,
what
yes,
do you
yes,
like
yes,
specifically
yes,
about
yes,
Shining
yes.
Force?
Yeah, but then it'd be like, okay, here's all the ones you said you know. Which ones have you played games in? Oh,
if we were to add Pac-Man to Super Monkey Ball, would he be inside the ball or would he actually just roll himself?
He'd be the ball, you bastards!
This seems like a strangely specific question.
Dear James,
sounds like
we've been wondering what your opinion on. It's like, why is this survey question addressed to me personally? On episode 920, you talked about the Pac-Man ball versus in the ball. We wanted to understand your thinking on this in this anonymous survey. There was one, I remember, a SEGA survey where it asked me like 5 or 6 questions about the Yakuza franchise. And like my opinion on what games I've played. It asked me how many games I've played. You're like, what games of the series you played? And I basically checked like the whole suite of them. And then the very next question after I hit next was, have you heard of the Yakuza franchise? And I pressed no. Because I'm like, fuck you. I just told you I played 6 of these fucking things. I've never heard of it. No. What's the Yakuza franchise? Tell me more. You absolute buffoons. But they would be like really super specific ones where it'd be like, have you heard of Hatsune Miku? Yes. What do you like about Hatsune Miku? I didn't say I like anything about Hatsune Miku. And that would be like checkbox number 12. It'd be like, I don't really care for that. It's like, what the fuck is this shit? Opinion surveys are great. I definitely always enjoy watching those go out of work. But on the Tomodachi question, which absolutely needs an everybody votes style integration, but it's just opinion surveys. Can somebody get eyes on Grezzo? Like, are we very much headed towards like Metopia 2 or Mitomo 2, whichever one was the RPG. I need eyes on Grezzo at all times to make sure that's not happening. Cause
they already did the Echoes of Wisdom, didn't they?
They did, yeah. But that's been a year now. Nintendo apparently needs a 2027 game for Switch.
Yeah, well, it could happen. That's the thing. It is one of the most successful bits of gaming hardware ever released.
Yep.
And when you look at things that have that in the past that have had that kind of presence in the marketplace, they tend to have a significant afterlife of sorts, where PS2 was already mentioned, right? Where, especially with PS3 not getting off to the most roaring of starts, PS2 went on for a long time, NES went on for a long time afterwards. It's just the way. So, and I mean, some of it may depend on how good of a start Switch 2 gets off to, which we don't know yet. But clearly for some of these developments that are not as, kind of apt to take advantage of like the features of Switch 2 or necessarily be the kinds of things that early adopters are looking for when they buy a new piece of hardware, it probably just makes too much sense to go with that larger install base.
Hold on. I'm doing some research right now. The last Just Dance for Wii U,
it's in captivity. The galaxy is at peace. We know.
It's not. The galaxy is definitively not in peace. What year do you think the last Wii U Just Dance was? Keep in mind that they number them a year.
It's Wii U, so it's like the one that but this probably is like last week or something absolutely ridiculous.
So it's Just Dance 2019, which came out in 2018, because fuck numbers. We hate numbers. What do you think was the last Wii Just Dance?
Oh, it's past that, isn't it? It's got to be, because people actually own Wii. Yeah. So
it's a Just Dance 2020. It came out in 2019. The last two Wii games, last two Wii disc games, like maybe even the last three, are all Just Dance games. It's bizarre. So yeah, they jumped. I mean, they kept the Wii U going 3 years into Switch's lifespan, releasing this game. But they kept the Wii going 4 years into Switch's lifespan, releasing this game. That's psychotic. Doesn't make any sense. Like, how are they even getting Nintendo to still make them Wii discs? Like, what favors were they calling? Hey guys, we want to release Just Dance on Wii. Why? What are you doing?
We still got customers. People still want to hit.
So, I don't think, let me confirm this. Confirmed. They did not release a Switch Wii U until 2021 when they dumped the Wii and, a Switch Just Dance in 2021 after they finally dumped Wii. Cause they were like, alright, we can't keep this going. So the longer install base is the thing that matters, I guess. But still, like, all eyes on Grezzo. Just keep eyes on him.
It's called a long tail, James. All right.
Well, it's one of these things. When they did
just
the
like
January,
Suezo, when his long tail. All right.
When they did the January announcement of Switch 2, where it's like, okay, here's just the most broad stuff, just about this is the name, this is the logo, here's a little, kind of quick image of what it looks like and a little bit of Mario Kart and all that, and then just give us a specific time when the details are going to come. And it was a long, the 3 months out nearly. You kind of felt like, that leaves some time to do, some stuff, to promote some stuff that's going to be on Switch 1, maybe to announce some new stuff. And there's a lot of different ways that could have happened. You could envision that happening. You could have had, partner presentations, indie worlds, stuff on, the social channels, which has happened at various times, when there have been taken longer gaps between major presentations. There's a lot of different ways that it could have happened for this kind of content. The idea that you'd wait until the very last minute and then do a sort of actual direct is probably the last way that I would have guessed that it would have happened.
Here's a bunch of news you're not expecting, and we're going to present it the weirdest way we can manage. Like, even the order of this, and we're not following the order of the Direct, but even the order of this Direct was weird and chaotic.
I guess maybe it's just one of these things where you kind of feel, I mean, you're right. I do think the ordering was different than what we're used to. And I think that's a direct result of the proximity of the Switch 2 Direct, right? It's just like, it's a different kind of situation when, you know, obviously, as we said, sometimes there's really, really big gaps between these things, you know, so it's been, you know, several months, sometimes between presentations. So, when they know that the audience may well be expecting that, there's that added layer of like, we've got to end on something big, we've got to end with a bang, we've got to leave them, you know, satisfied, but they're also wanting more, you know, all those kinds of things. In this case, it did just kind of feel more like, well, look, they're going to be, this isn't really what anybody's that desperate for anyway. We're going to have them back in 6 days. We don't need to like, as be beholden to the notion of like end with the big bang. So it's kind of like, you know, what some people might have thought
so we
would
ended
be
with the big me instead. Yes.
Yeah. You just a big, and an app.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. We haven't talked about the app.
So,
well,
I mean, in terms
still
of
thought
games,
it was really weird that they put Metroid just in the middle of it.
Well,
like,
so,
in the middle,
here's some Metroid, I guess.
So,
if you guys give a
let's
shit.
talk about
okay,
that.
Here you go.
All right,
on to the next thing.
That Metroid trailer, besides having a nice song in it, gave us fuck all. Samus has powers, but ultimately the psychic powers just look like other things. Like, most of them are operating a Switch with her mind.
Yeah, it's like here's
that trailer's. Go ahead.
I mean, I was just gonna say that game. I was watching it, and I'm just like, okay, this looks just like Metroid Prime Remastered. Okay, gotcha.
So I think it looks better than that.
Like.
But
it looks like maybe that's what they were going for. This is the Metroid Prime that you know and love.
But
yeah, exactly.
Like, my immediate takeaway from that trailer when they just announced the year again is, oh, we're going to get a date for that thing on the Switch 2 Direct because it's going to be tied to that thing's launch date.
I mean, that seems somewhat plausible now, I think you have to say, because again, it's like, okay, we're doing a Direct just for Switch 1 stuff, like, and Metroid Prime 4 is one of the only things that is actually announced for the original Switch by Nintendo, first party. Right. So it's like, you have to have it in there, but it does kind of feel equally like they were holding back something.
We really want to talk about it later.
More stuff. I mean, those psychic powers he talked about, it seemed a bit peculiar to me, like just describing them as psychic powers. I don't know. It just
one of them was she waved her hand and a switch opened up. Like
every game or fiction, whatever, is entitled to its own jargon or whatever, right? But it's like, isn't that normally at the closest I would think it would be to would be like psychokinetic? You know what I mean? Like not or telekinetic.
She's reading like the Switch's mind.
No, it doesn't. That doesn't seem right, does it? It just,
no, it's wrong.
Well,
I mean, it's all made up nonsense. It doesn't actually matter, but still, it's like
bullshit. I met a psychic just the other day. It's fine. It's all real.
I mean, she literally has a third eye on her suit.
She does have a third eye on her suit. Yes, but
yeah, that's not something I would have noticed myself. But then I've seen comments.
I don't know whether it's going to be, you know, that there will be more like what we, you know, telepathic stuff going on as well, and they're just showing the telekinetic stuff, you know, because that seems
that's
like
the beyond
practical
part, man.
Oh, yeah, okay. It seemed a bit. But the interesting part about it is, it seemed to me, it seemed like, this is almost like something that follows on from like the pointer type stuff in Prime 3.
Yeah, a little bit.
You know, it's really quite pointer. You know, it seemed like the kind of thing that would fit with pointer control, which obviously you could, you know, have a little bit of emulation of that with the gyro on Switch. If you've got, you know, if you're playing maybe in handheld mode, you've got, you know, playing with the Joy-Con detached can, you know, emulate pointer with the kind of gyro motion. If you're playing on TV, so you know, it's not as if that stuff.
Someone comment that it could be cursor, like mouse pointer controls.
And then you've got the other part of it you can consider is this something that on Switch 2, if you're playing it there, the mouse type functionality of the Joy-Con that was teased in that original Switch 2 trailer, could that factor in somewhere? So yeah, it did feel a bit like we had to show something from this, but maybe there's more to come, or more to mention in that next direct as well.
They definitely would have given us at least a target time frame if it wasn't going to get mentioned.
Because it didn't even get the late 25 that Pokemon has received.
So that tells me that this thing is probably day and date with Switch 2. There's probably a Switch 2 version or Switch 2 enhancements or something. And they're like, the fact that they said very little is because they're going to say very much in 6 days. And so it's like, well, we don't want to give away the game on this one, pun not intended. So we're just going to sit on it for a little while. Also, just as a quick aside on Switch 2, they showed a render of the Switch 2 again this time, but this one didn't edit out the C button. So you can see the C button is there. So at the end of the show today, we're going to get our last C button predictions in. The C button is real and confirmed by Nintendo, not just by leaks. So,
So C is for channeling in the psychic sense.
Oh, okay.
You press the button to channel the spirit of emoji.
The spirit of emoji. The spirit of Mitomo.
Sure.
All of a sudden, a bunch of me start falling from the sky when you press the button. I mean, there wasn't we got to see it again. I think it looks better than Remastered. I do.
I didn't think it looked bad at all.
No.
I've seen people criticize it, but I think it's fine for a Switch game to look like a Switch game. I think that the colors are nice. Like, it's not necessarily a color palette that we're used to in the Metroid game, so I enjoyed that. Like, it that in itself is enough to make it a bit differentiate it from the rest. And also today I learned a word, yonic. You hear a lot about phallic things, but not so much about yonic stuff. And the doors are indeed very yonic. They're kind of all over the place in this trailer.
So I have used that word recently on RFN when we were talking about Gwyneth Paltrow was running Nintendo.
It went over my head.
Yeah. Specifically, I use the term of it, yoni. Same thing. Same idea. Yonic is an adjective.
So yeah. So Samus is getting in touch with her femininity more than ever.
Oh, I thought you were saying she's going to make candles that smell like things. Maybe that's a sign. Maybe that's.
I've been told the making those jokes is going too far.
Oh, okay. Well, that wouldn't be the first time. I don't know. I don't think there's much else to say about that game, to be honest. Like, they didn't say a whole lot.
Especially when, as you said,
they
didn't advance the date part of a conversation. No. It didn't advance too much of the conversation with the content either.
Samus has bullet time. That was basically what we got.
That was like you said, raises the question of could there be that more sort of Switch 2 specific elements of it or something. I don't know. I mean, there was I've seen on NintendoWorldReport.com, not part of the presentation, but somewhere in the fine print with regard to the idea of the virtual game card that we haven't got into, I'm sure we will, that there was reference to Switch 2 editions of games.
Yes.
With the implication being that essentially cross-gen games, as it often has been referred to, with stuff overlapping, PS4 and PS5, will be a thing, essentially.
Yeah.
That you will have a game presumably launch on Switch and Switch 2 simultaneously, and that, the Switch 2 version is referred to as a Switch 2 edition, and that can only be played on Switch 2.
Right.
Now, whether Metroid Prime 4 necessarily is one of these, or we've still got to wait to find out, but it certainly seems like that's firmly in the realm of possibility.
That seems like the most obvious canon, unless there's a Z to A one. But that'd be very much not how the Pokemon group works. So I'm going to guess no. But this, Metroid, like, if they're going to do it, Metroid's the game to do it on. Because you could certainly, even if it looks the same, but just like 160 and 130, like, that might be enough for some people to justify even potentially charging more. So you may as well pull the trigger on that and go from there. And we speculated last week that was going to be a thing. that there were going to be cross-gen games, and that
it has been because again, we've already had some experience with some similar, kind of platform transitions, right? Obviously PS4 was very successful. Yes. PS5 comes along, and it wasn't some sort of hard, immediate stop. And there were a lot of the kind of cross-gen type of games and stuff. And so, yeah, you'd be surprised if there wasn't a certain amount of overlap. But Nintendo does things their own way, and they're going to be under pressure to give Switch 2 some exclusive, number of exclusive. Ultimately, that is how you're going to sell new hardware, and it might well be, quite expensive new hardware. You've got to have certain games that are going to be exclusive. But yeah, obviously this in Metroid Prime 4 is a bit of a special case because it's this bizarre overhang. They never would have chosen to do it the way they've done it. It's the product of a bunch of weird decisions and timelines and, circumstances. But, here it is. I wondered whether it's something that they'd want to spend even more money doing a separate version on when it's probably not necessarily going to be that lucrative,
right?
In general. But we did also say, the start of a console's life is probably the best time, or certainly a unique opportunity to either introduce or reintroduce a franchise to people. Because, again, there's that maybe they're looking around for games to play in a way that they're not quite as open once the platform is well established and you kind of just play in your usual sorts of games for it, but everything is available.
Well, and there's probably in that respect some value in it being on shelves with just whatever the Switch 2 game card packaging looks like. Like just from a mind share standpoint of it being up there with the Switch 2, like rather than it just being a sticker on it that says compatible with, because there were some GameCube games that came out late after the Wii launch that had, compatible with Wii stickers on them, but that's not the same as there being a Wii box with a disc in it. Just from an availability standpoint, a visibility standpoint, but also retailers aren't going to stock Switch games forever, but Switch 2 games, presumably they're going to stock longer. So having Metroid Prime 4 in a Switch 2 box, making it, stockable as a Switch 2 product might make some sense. Now, again, we talked about it, long tail. It's going to be a while, but that is a consideration as well. We got an update on Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D, which basically we got some footage and confirmed they're going to add some content. Looks like Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D, which they also added some content to. Is anybody here shocked by anything? No release date, except 2025. Weird thing to open the Direct with, I guess. But I mean,
yeah.
I mean, it
looks cool though.
In Japan, I guess it would have more of a hit, so I get it to a certain degree.
Yeah, it's a big name. It's and again, it's a lot of these things that were in the Direct were things. However much this is luck or judgment or some sort of fundamentals about the nature of the games involved, they're the kinds of things that have been on the back end of platforms. Very often, a Dragon Quest is one of those, isn't it? Because Dragon Quest games always tended to stick very, very rigorously to platforms that had sold a lot of units, and they kind of stuck around then, when they were quite old, like in the case of even, like Super Famicom, those latter Dragon Quests on there, or, on PS1, PS2, like they weren't early games, the Dragon Quest games that were on those systems. So it just kind of, it feels natural for that, really, to open with it, given that sort of history. But yeah, it's something that obviously, the sort of consumer base in Japan is going to be a lot more sensitive to.
Yeah. Gradius Collection, which is Gradius Salamander, Life Force, Gradius 2, Gradius 3, Salamander 2, Salamander 3, which is a new game.
Yeah, but I mean, they've got a lot of different variants, but it's kind of like 3 Gradius, 3 Salamander. Like that's, and there's seemingly, like I said, a lot of different, because they had different names in the West. So it's like, well, it was, Gradius was Nemesis, and then, Salamander was Life Force, and weirdest of all, Gradius 2 was Vulcan Venture in the West for some reason. It's very strange.
That is very strange.
What's interesting about this collection is, it's very leveraged on these arcade, Gradius and, with the Salamander, it's got a Gradius adjacent, shooters. But they kind of somewhat already been covered. If you had, before the Castlevania and Contra anniversary collections, there was the Kaname Arcades anniversary collection. And that had Gradius, and it had Gradius 2, and it had Life Force in there, and a number of other shooters, as well as just completely on its own, Odd Duck, Haunted Castle was in there as well. The not particularly well-liked Castlevania arcade game. But the point is, those games were in a collection already, and that was essentially like the Arcade Archives kind of emulation. So, pretty solid. But what you're dealing with here is an M2 collection, like the Castlevania and Contra ones. And specifically, they're kind of putting it under their, Shot Triggers sort of sub-brand, which, they've done a bunch of, shooter release. A lot of them are just Japan exclusive.
Right.
Like they come out physically over there, where, they've got this whole suite of emulation features to kind of, make the game more, playable on a customizable, with all this kind of, look like changing hitbox sizes and all sorts of stuff, So I think, in terms of not that anything against Arcade Archives, kind of the hamster level of quality or anything, but it will be taking it to another level of emulation quality and robustness of features. I don't doubt that. And it's going to have more of those different variations of things. Now, what the Konami Anniversary Collection did not have was Gradius 3, which has come to Arcade Archives to Hamster since, and is also not that well liked.
Good.
It is wretchedly difficult. Heinously hard.
Is that what you've heard, or is that coming from personal opinion?
Oh, both.
Okay, because if it comes from your personal opinion, that's frightening.
The thing is, for me, I never played the arcade version until relatively recently, right? So, I played the Super Nintendo version as a child.
Yes.
That has enormous slowdown, which makes the game much easier. So it kind of giveth and taketh away in that respect. It's like, it is kind of farcical, and it wasn't a great advertisement for the Super Famicom's capabilities. But, it helped you get to the end, all that slowdown. So, and then you put that is probably some of the problem. When I've, as an adult, played Gradius 3, it's just like, no, I can't handle this. It's too fast. It's just, but I mean, everything I've ever read of people just who don't have that experience, just examining the arcade game on its own merits, it's kind of like, they went too far with this one. It was too kind of mean-spirited in its quarter munching kind of tendencies, or, maybe just too focused on, the most sort of shooter enthusiast kind of arcade goers, in Japan and elsewhere at the time. So, that is an addition from the previous, compared to the previous collection, but it's not like it isn't available, and it's not that kind of loved either. The more interesting parts is Salamander 2 is a significantly later game that has not been re-released many times. I have played it on the PSP Gradius collection. To come back to that, I did eventually get a PSP, and I did get the Gradius collection for it, and it has that Salamander 2 on it. I have played through it. I don't remember that much about it. It seemed cool and fun at the time, but I don't remember it much more than that. But then the most interesting part is Salamander 3, because this is what seems to be essentially something we can come to expect from M2 now, which is when they do a collection, they see if they can do a new game to kind of add on to the ones that are there. We've had it with, first of all, in that Shot Triggers line, they did an Alesta collection of the 8-bit games, and they made a third Game Gear Alesta, which everything I've read about that apparently is really good, like for what it is as a sort of follow-up to those 8-bit Alesta games. Is like great, and it's a novel game, but I think it was made such that it could run on a Game Gear theoretically, and it did run on one of those silly mini Game Gears. If you bought an extravagant special edition, there was a bespoke white mini Game Gear with the Alesta games on there. So that's
God
just the sort of thing that M2 will do, but recently, the DS collection for Castlevania, the Dominus collection, you had the Haunted Castle revisited, which thoroughly rehabilitated, as I said, the maligned Haunted Castle arcade game into something that, wasn't all that substantial, but it was fun. And that, could well be the kind of thing that you're dealing with here with Salamander 3. And that seems pretty cool to me. I'm definitely interested to see anything in this vein that M2 are doing, because of course you can't forget they did the Rebirth games back on WiiWare, which, you had Gradius and you had Contra and Castlevania, and they were all, again, in that mold. Not hugely substantial or anything, but very, very solid slices of those kinds of, classic gameplay, just, made today.
So what else do we want to touch on? Obviously we have to get to let's go to the app. Let's go to the whole show ends with Miyamoto coming out for the first time, to talk about a non-game, which Shinya Takahashi already told us is going to be a non-game.
I thought this was going to be something about a theme park, to be honest with you.
Or a movie.
I didn't see this coming.
Yeah, the movie thing. Not today, but I was thinking, the one thing they might do for Mario Day, back on the 10th would have been, something about the movie. Because it's not that far. It's like a year away now, right? The next one, the Mario movie.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
It's a ways out, yes.
Because that roughly is sort of a similar time to when they started, to promote. I mean, it's different because it was the first one of that sort, but they started doing things to kind of, revealing cast members and stuff. They did it way out for that.
The cycle on these things goes forever.
So I wouldn't have shocked me if there was something about that, because it's. I mean, I still haven't even seen the first one, but it's sneaking up on the way. It won't be that far away now.
No, you gotta strike while the iron's hot. I expected it to be something more interesting than that, or in that vein. But maybe it's a movie we don't know about. Maybe they're about to announce a new movie. No, it was Nintendo Today. Available today. An app that... Alright, so this is actually really close to a joke I made as an article for how Nintendo should do their directs. Where they should just, launch a channel and never tell anyone when they're gonna be. Because they released an app that lets you have a calendar, but you can't put things on the calendar. Nintendo puts things on the calendar. And the things they put on the calendar are marketing. So, if you get in there today, on the calendar is the Nintendo Direct. But also it asks you what series you like. And it puts just facts about those series on the calendar. But they're not tied to a date. They're just there. What's interesting is we as a group did not collectively get the same stuff. So, I got an image gallery of Super Mario 64, where it's just those 3D renders of the characters that aren't in the game at all, and look really, 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 really wretchedly bad. 'Cause they were available. I got a thing called the Super Mario Guide to the World of Super Mario, which I guess it means it's going to be a series. World 1 Super Mario Brothers. It is exactly 3 screenshots from the World 1 of Super Mario Brothers with this is all of the text. The first world of the Mushroom Kingdom, period. Goombas and Koopa Troopers stand in your way, challenge. stand in your way in challenging courses above and below ground, period. Who would ever describe World 1 as challenging courses? And then at the end, there's a tip, which is a little sticky note that says, climb above the lat ceiling using the lift in World 1-2 to find pipes leading to Worlds 2, 3, and 4. And it's a screenshot of Welcome to Warp Zone. And then at the bottom, and this is on every article, you can rate them as either useful, funny, cool, or cute. What about stupid? I would like to rate this stupid. Can I rate this stupid? No, but
The second one...
Yes?
Sorry, so the second one is funny for you because in French Canadian, it's interesting.
Is it?
That seems to be either a mistranslation or someone forgot to update. Maybe it was changed in English and then they forgot to update the French.
Does the emoji look like it's laughing in the French Canadian one?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely a mistranslation in the French Canadian one.
Wow. I'll have to report this.
6% of people think that this tip is funny. 7% think it's cute. Fuck those people. 21% think it's cool. That's just manifestly wrong. And 66% think it's useful, which is not true at all. So I'm
part of 7%, by the way, so fuck you too.
Oh, okay. You thought it was cute?
Well, it was not interesting, useful, or cool.
It could be none of them. I also got a comic, like a manga comic translated from Japanese. I could tell because you have to read it right to left. Of Nook Tales from Animal Crossing, which Tommy was left on an island and almost died because there was no fruit.
So this is where our content differs, right? Because you got that manga and I've got an animated Pikmin cartoon.
Sure.
And so, it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's not a animated short or anything. Well, I mean, no, it's fairly animated. They could have called this
quasi-animated. Quasi-animated.
No, like it's fairly. It's. Sorry, I can't speak anymore. Like there's more animation than you would think. Like it's not just a motion comic.
Okay.
Remember those?
Yes.
Where like they would basically stretch Spider-Man to show that he was speaking, and then they maybe would swoosh him around the screen to show that he's swinging. It's more than that.
Oh,
There's
man.
actual
Peace Walker has some
frames of
amazing
animation.
shit in there. Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, where it's like the snake is like bouncing across the screen. Oh, it's the best. So
I've got like a Kirby concert thing.
I didn't get that either.
From the 25th anniversary. Concept art for Metroid Dread. It's really weird. The whole thing, and so I was, I saw the direct presentation, and of course what's understood from the name Nintendo Today is that this is an app that you're supposed to go back to every day.
There's a widget.
But there's no way they can fill up this content, like new content every day, or like
I don't know about that, Guillaume, because in my content list here, I have for March 27th, I have a Nintendo Direct, but then I have Nobunaga's Ambition available, Nobunaga's Ambition, Lord of Whatever available, Romance of the Three Kingdoms, blah blah blah, Romance of the Three Kingdoms 4 available, Uncharted. Hold on, there's more. Uncharted Waters New Horizons available, right? So I mean, there's a lot of content in here, Guillaume.
I wish it was just one image after another of Nobunaga from Nobunaga's Ambition. Just
I don't know. It feels like padding.
So if you go to the very, very bottom of the app though, there's a button that's setting up the widget, which lets you put a widget on your home screen that tells you about these things. But also it's a Android widget, so it integrates to the Android calendar, but also, so it adds things like the Direct to it. There's if you scroll down again, you can tap here to download some wallpapers and get some Nintendo Today wallpapers. Do you want an Animal Crossing wallpaper? What about Pikmin? What about Splatoon? Like, the Splatoon one's kind of cute, I guess. But, like, it'd be covered by icons, so I don't know that that's actually useful, because that's where the Android base icons sit. So, good job. You did it.
Maybe because my calendar's in French, but it doesn't acknowledge the Koei games. Perhaps because those aren't available in French, so it just they don't call it out.
I don't see that at all, and I'm just gonna have to assume John is fucking around with us.
Okay.
If you actually go back to the calendar, though, it does have some other stuff on there. So if you go back to like the 20th, it says Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition available. Then on the 10th, it's
they showed the Nintendo Experience events around the world.
Yeah.
So in Berlin and Dallas, that's on the 25th, by the way, on a Friday.
Yep, on the 10th of this month, it had the new Alarmo experience, the new Alarmo alarm released. Yeah, like this is such a weird thing. I don't like. I'm all right. So I'm of two minds here. One, this is the dumbest shit in the world. Two, I'm kind of in love with it. Because it doesn't make any sense. Like,
I need more functionality. No, I need some sort of Miiverse. I need maybe like a screenshot sharing thing that's less stupid than what we have now.
What if it was a screenshot sharing thing, but it was other people's screenshots? It's just served up randomly to you. It wasn't like, I want to share this one. It was just screenshots you took instantly became available. That's a feature. That's a feature. I don't like.
That's a thing. What?
No, it's not. But it should be because nothing in this is a thing that makes any sense. Everything is some weird perversion of a normal thing. Like they contextualized it around like, oh, it's like a Nintendo Direct, and now we're going to get information directly to you, even with the hand gesture that Iwata used to do, in a new way. And the answer is no, you're not. You're going to give me a link to the Nintendo Direct video on YouTube and a bunch of fucking weird images. Now, they did say there would be more content after the Switch 2 event. And that makes some sense because they could start hyping up Switch 2 on this thing. But who the fuck is going to download this besides weirdos like us?
Like, yeah,
I don't know. Like, clearly they're trying to avoid having to pin all their... To put all their marketing efforts on social media, which, you know, when it turns out that the platform is evil, you know.
That's definitely part of it.
Yeah. But like they need to give more reason for people. Like this is great for Nintendo. I don't see how this is great for the user. Like they're not really offering much here. So yeah, let's hope that next week they have a lot more to show to show because I don't know. I guess that Pikmin cartoon is cute, but
which I just
not that
didn't
cute.
get. So, you know, it's fine. I'm not upset.
You'll probably get it tomorrow.
That's true.
Or the day after.
I'm not upset.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Nintendo. I'm not upset.
Fuck you, Nintendo.
Yeah, exactly. Like that should be the answer to any Direct.
How does it feel to be spurned, James? Spurned by Nintendo.
Oh, okay. Well, that's different. I was going to say normal, but your clarification does make it it different.
Spurned by Nintendo.
Oh, okay. I can fix him. Is my answer to that? It'll be fine. All right. So that was one of the truly bizarre things. Hey guys, there's a Rhythm Heaven game coming out.
No, well, that was probably the big thing from this Direct for me.
Oh,
Again, this is a series that I would kind of associate with this period of a platform's life. Don't forget, the original Rhythm Tengoku in Japan was a 2006 GBA game.
Oh yeah.
So, you know, we're well into the DS's ascent to dominance, but that game still came out for GBA, was not localized. Not surprisingly, pretty much everything after from 05 and 6 in Japan that was on GBA didn't get localized because the Western branches obviously felt like prioritizing and focusing on DS was the way to go to try and give that the best chance to succeed, and it did. So kind of hard to find fault with the overall strategy there, but it meant that the Western audiences missed out on that game, which was a hell of a lot of fun. I imported it and I loved it. And of course, then you had the DS game, the Wii game, and Mega Mix on 3DS, which had, new, content, but it was also, as the name would suggest, kind of folding in stuff from the previous games and all that. And that's the thing. When Rhythm Heaven Mega Mix came out in Japan anyway for 3DS, and again, quite a late 3DS game, 2015 in Japan, 2016 in the West, but in 15, the original Rhythm Heaven was 9 years old. And then, by the time that this new game comes out, it'll be 20 years old. So it's like, that is, when you look at it that way, it really is a great thing that it can come back, because after that length of time, you had to wonder whether it would.
Yeah, so how they introduced it was like a tutorial that you'd get before the game starts, and like instantly when I saw that character, I knew what it was. I'm glad that
but also the sound.
Oh yeah, the sound
of
font.
The advancing the text noise of this, it's Rhythm Tengoku straight away.
The fact that the character says the symbol at the end of the sentences, which is a very like that's this series. I'm glad Sunku's back, because that was part of the issue for a while, was that he had a major health.
No, I could recall hearing that there was some question of ill health, and you just had to wonder whether the circumstances would ever come together again to kind of do this. And then, as we said, the history of it is a little bit strange, in terms of, it missed the boat on the early DS kind of success, because it was a GBA game. But then there was a DS game that they put a really, really big push behind for the Western localization. The Beyonce adverts, and they put it as a Touch Generations thing. And then it didn't sell as well as other Touch Generations games, because it doesn't really fit in with them. It's a proper like rhythm action game. It's not that casual.
Right.
You know what I mean? So even it might not have like note highways or anything like that, but there's an exacting element to the gameplay that was never really a perfect fit with that broader kind of, audience and marketing strategy they were going for. And then, luckily at least, you did get, the Wii game and the 3DS game, but again, bit later, quite late on those systems, not necessarily the biggest chances to sell huge numbers, and it may very well be the case again here, but just the fact that it can exist for those of us that have a lot of affection for the series, and it'd be really cool to see it come back. I think it'd be that's definitely the big takeaway from the whole thing for me.
Also, another 2026 game. Rhythm Heaven Groove is its full name, which I don't think we've actually said.
Mm-hmm. It's still, I think they're still using the Rhythm Paradise name for the European.
Why?
Because it was always, they've messed around with it quite a bit over here, because I think the Wii game was technically like Beat the Beat Rhythm Paradise or something.
Yes,
they've been,
because I love that title because it's so stupid.
All over the map. Yeah, it's like I've got a physical import copy of every Rhythm Tengoku game, so I'm wondering, am I going to have to do that again just for consistency? I don't know. But so it's rather than I should just get it digitally, obviously. But
what's weird is in South Korea and. Wait, so it's South Korea, they refer to it as Miracle Stars as the subtitle, and apparently also in the Chinese language mark. What? Why does the series have so many fucking names? Nintendo, please. What are you doing? It's beautiful. But yeah, obviously we did.
Turns out you can't trademark Heaven in a lot of countries.
But can you trademark Rhythm Heaven? Like we didn't get a lot. There's some screenshots that we got of some different activities. They all look very Rhythm Heaven-y with lots of different art styles, but also this is going to be in 1080p, so that's cool.
Sometimes the art looked weird to me. Like there were bits that I was like, yeah, this is Rhythm Heavens, and others that I was like, this might be a placeholder. The game is certainly far away.
They've always been all over the map in art styles, though. Like they would slip things in there that are like weird, highly detailed drawings for a game, just cause, or ones that look like they were claymation. I think.
Oh yeah, I mean, even the very like the GBA game, which obviously didn't have a lot of resolution to play with, but certain things were like almost looked like they could be from an Atari game,
right?
Like or certainly a Famicom game. But then others were quite stylish. Like there's always been a certain amount of aesthetic variety, but at the same time, there's also like a kind of core identity to it as well. It's weird. It kind of manages to have a sense of its own style while also going a lot of different places, which is, a little bit, as you might imagine, akin to WarioWare in that sense. It's got that kind of like somewhat anarchic kind of thing, but it's still got its own style as well.
Well, does the core stuff share the same artist as the WarioWare? Because there's definitely some style overlap.
I always imagine it. I feel like it did, but it's been a while since I actually looked into that. But yeah, there was overlap there. I would have thought.
Yeah, like there's definitely some visual styling overlap, but I can't remember his name now. Ko Takeuchi, right? Yeah, that's it. I want to say he worked on the Rhythm Heaven games. Why don't I just look? Yes, he did. All right. Asked and answered. Is he working on this one? Who can say? But he worked on WarioWare Move It in 2023, so probably. There you go. Yeah, like to me, this was the thing that got an audible noise of ooh, even though I'm in the office, just a little quiet, little ooh.
Again, it's one of these things where your expectations for something like this, which admittedly, like it couldn't be like that laser focus because it's just weird like this is not a situation we've been in before, right? They were kind of recapping the fact that like Nintendo Directs go back to like 2011 and so we don't really have like the Nintendo Direct era doesn't necessarily like completely cover like an analogous experience to the one we're going through right now in terms of that was during like kind of from Wii to Wii U sort of period, but first of all, the directs weren't, they hadn't kind of developed into the form that they are now but in those early days. And also, it's just like the Wii, I feel like ran out of steam a lot more thoroughly than the Switch has.
Oh yeah.
You didn't, if anything, it just felt like they'd waited too long to make that transition. And of course, as we keep saying all the time, Wii U never even gathered steam.
Right.
So this is a situation, that is unlike anything we've seen before. So it's difficult to say, I've got a really, good idea of what's going to be in this. But all day long, I would have said a Kirby platformer.
Oh yeah.
Than Rhythm Heaven coming back for this. I literally said it last week, like Kirby, they often have a Kirby game to send off a system late in its life. That is a very dependable aspect of that series, and I was kind of shocked we didn't get one in this, I have to say. I don't know whether again that increases the likelihood that there might well be one that's in the Switch 2 Direct somewhere, because like I said, we already went a whole year without something Kirby coming out, which is quite rare. But yeah, for this, to be here, for Rhythm to Goku to feature, is just, nothing against Kirby. I enjoy those games, but it's more impactful. Like, he's going to get more of a reaction out of you because it's been ages since we had anything from it. And like, so if you
3DS?
If you don't consider Megamix as to be like a wholly original game, you're going back to the Wii game, which is, 15 years plus, right? So by the time this actually comes out in 26.
Yeah, I mean, and Megamix, you're talking about 2015. So yeah, it's a long ass time. And like I said, the one of the key creatives on this had a very serious health thing that effectively disabled his ability to work on the series, from what I understand. So the fact that we're back, yo. This is great. So that was, to me, that was the biggest thing on the Direct. I feel like I'm missing stuff. Did I miss anything?
Well, there's some bits and pieces. I mean, there was that, was it Eternal Life of Goldman?
Yeah.
That looked very striking visually.
It is.
that
Very
kind
weird,
of hand-drawn look and everything.
Super pretty, and looks like it has DuckTales gameplay because, you're just pogo jumping on a cane for part of it.
I do that. Thanks for introducing that. And now we just can't escape it, even in Donkey Kong games. No Donkey Kong, which is something I would have expected. Now I'm really getting it towards like,
Well, Well, maybe he's, more in the Switch 2's leagues.
Is it possible? All right, let's say for the sake of argument, could Nintendo announce a game for Switch 2, like it's a brand new game, that they intended to be cross-platform, so like a Donkey Kong, and they would announce it next week, it's also coming to Switch, very, very quietly, or do you think they would have announced it this week and then dropped the also coming to Switch?
Actually, like I said, you've got a few things to consider there, because obviously you could say, well, look at how they handled Metroid Prime 4, but again, that's a special case.
Right.
That's something that was announced. They
had to talk about it.
A million years ago, and there's that obligation. Whereas other stuff, where it's like, you've never announced this before, you've never talked about it before, so you can kind of lead with the Switch 2 version, but then maybe also say, Switch 2 edition, apparently is the jargon that we've seen in the fine print. But then perhaps, it does also have a Switch 1 incarnation. It could happen. You would think you're going to really lean hard on exclusive stuff, with this direct. Even if you are doing a Switch 1 version, maybe because, that's mostly how the game was developed, and it's only kind of getting a Switch 2 sort of brush up or something, as a kind of, sales exercise, then, I just feel like you that it's all about exclusive software. That's how you're going to get people to fork over the money to buy this thing. I mean, I've known people. It has been. Well, I know we didn't sort of go down this road doing predictions last week, but the question of whether like the new Mario Kart would be exclusive to Switch 2, or would that have like?
It's gotta be. It's gotta be.
And from my point of view, it's just like, why would you, self-harm that badly by making that Switch 1 compatible? Like, that would be a massive own goal to make that, have a Switch 1 version of any kind.
I could definitely see some third-party games getting announced next week, where it's like, and it is coming to Switch 1 as well, because that's how we started it. But Nintendo offered us a spot on the podium, so we're gonna fucking take it. But I like something like a Donkey Kong, where it's like, and
certainly something like Kirby.
Yeah,
actually.
Kirby would be a great example.
That I could see much more so than definitely. I mean, like I said, to me, the new Mario Kart, and again, whether it would be technically feasible to like run some, somewhat compromised version of it on Switch is academic, irrelevant.
Right.
It needs to be exclusive on the new hardware to get people to buy. I know you can say, oh, well, it would sell all these copies on the old Switch if you put it on there, and that might be true, but that's not the strategic imperative.
It exists
the strategic
to
imperative
sell
to get
Switch 2.
Yeah, that's it.
It is the definitive raison d'etre for that game, is to sell Switch 2. And so releasing it on Switch 1 is self-defeating, existentially self-defeating.
Yep.
Yes, it will not be on Switch 1. It won't. It would be crazy. It would be business malpractice. John?
But what's not business malpractice is virtual game cards.
Oh, we haven't talked about that shit. You're right. Thank you.
Well, we mentioned it, but we haven't got into it and what it might mean. I guess this was
John transition master today.
He's on it. He is on it. When you became aware of this presentation, one of the things you considered is the notion of how much of this going to actually set the table for anything in the Switch 2 Direct. Like, actually, maybe do a little bit of, kind of exposition, if you like, for something that would end up in Switch. And I guess this would qualify in the sense that it feels like it's an initiative that's principally, been developed with the fresh Switch 2 ecosystem in mind, that they're also like, well, yeah, we can have that work, that functionality on the Switch 1 platform as well, and we can talk about it up front and, keep the Switch 2 presentation a little more focused on those shiny exclusive games that are actually, really going to do the business of selling people on the platform.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. But like, man, this is a weird, they had to talk about this because it is a change. And so doing it now makes sense, I guess. All right, so have any of y'all actually played with family sharing as it presently exists on Switch?
No, I've not.
Okay.
Not to any great
not.
extent. I mean, I have two devices because I got the launch day model and the OLED model.
Yes.
But I haven't traded back and forth very much. I just kind of ended up designating the OLED as the new main system. So, but I mean, as I understand it, I could go back to the old system and still kind of play games, on there if they're installed on there, digital. If like I'm connected to the internet, like at the same time,
or it might have to check in sometimes if it works the same way that NSO games do.
Yeah, I assume it's in that same. So the point is, you wouldn't have the same for like a lot of the time. I'll put my OLED in the flight mode to turn off the wireless to save battery or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't be able to do that if you was doing the other one because because I've designated the OLED as the main system that can play. So I've got my Japanese account that I bought stuff from and stuff like that. They're all on there. With the old one, at this point, I'd have to be online and signed into the account that I purchased the particular game using it, that account, to be able to play it. So that's the way it's been. Now, I don't think it's a coincidence that this comes immediately after the end of Gold Points, right? I feel like this is essentially a different way of trying to kind of bridge that kind of digital physical gap of trying to make digital games seem more appealing relative to physical games. But rather than a 5% cashback here, we've got, oh look, actually it can be like physical game. You can lend it to people in a similar way, or it feels like it's trying to attack the same problem from a completely different angle.
I took it as that, like, I know it's probably not widely used. You can set up your a secondary Switch and play games on it, but I know for a fact, undeniably, that there are people who abuse that feature to like basically share games.
Yeah.
And it is, in fact, I would guess the majority of people who use it are probably also people who abuse it. Nintendo would probably like to rein that in because they would like to sell more copies of the games. Publishers would probably also like that reined in a bit. But Nintendo would also like to make that feature more broadly available. So they created a very convenient digital analog to a physical concept. You put the game into the Switch and take it out. It's self-explanatory in that respect. And what I like about it is that it effectively only requires to be online during the handshake, which is I am putting it into the Switch, I am taking it out. Because effectively at that point, Nintendo can say, all right, it's been checked in from the person who had a lease on it before, a digital lease, and it's now been released, so you can take it. But until that person releases it, they just won't let you put it in your, quote, insert it into your system to play it. Like, there's a very clean, I say I like it. I like it as a software architect. I look at it and I'm like, this is a very clean state diagram that I can draw in my brain, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
And I can explain it to a QE and who they brought in from the outside last week and have him test it. Makes total sense. But it's just very discreet. Like, one person has access to it, but that person isn't necessarily the account that bought it to begin with. The whole part where you have to be present, that one's weird. My guess is they're trying to prevent people from just setting up message boards online where you can just swap games, because after 14 days, the lease reverts automatically. So there's no risk of your game not coming back to you. So there's a very real possibility that people could just set up a Discord where all they do is swap games. But by requiring the two systems be in contact with each other at least once, you sort of create a firewall there where people can't do...
Yeah, because they have to be physically beside each other in order to register.
But unless they're on your family account, then they only have to be physically beside each other once. Is that right? I want to say
the family account does factor into it somehow, yeah, but I'm not exactly
I want to
sure.
say it was you could loan it to anybody, but those had to be in proximity. But because I think they said that you have to have the two
consoles side by side the first time.
Right, for the family account one. But for the other one, for the loan to anyone who's not on your family account, that would require you be side by side consistently, which makes sense because that's a way of preventing the whole setting up a Discord to swap games thing. But it would still allow me, for example, for next time I see the girlfriend, to set up family account and then just that one time, essentially, yep, handshake, done. And then we could, in theory, share games back and forth. But, like, it's a restraint. Go ahead.
I'm just saying there's not that many details on the Nintendo World Report article, but it does say, and that's what I understood from the video, like, the difference seems so minuscule, and I'm not sure, like, a little bit arbitrary, but, like, so when it's not in a family group,
yes,
it's supposed to emulate how you share a physical game, and it kind of looks like it wouldn't necessarily come back to you. Like, there was no mention of that. Like, there's no 2-week limit.
All right, so the first scenario it talks about is 2 Switch systems with the same primary account. And those are and in that one, they talk about how you can just swap them back and forth with no limitation. You can freely load and arrange which games appear on the 2 systems.
So that's basically like if it's me with my 2 Switches, right? That's
because they've got both the same Nintendo account on it, so they're okay.
And
so maybe that's what I was.
And
missing.
That's the one that requires the single handshake, the one-time handshake. So that is to prevent because that's how people were doing it in other environments. Was they would just put their primary account on, and they could just online. They could, I'm going to give you the credentials to my account, but don't steal it, okay? Don't steal it, bro. Then you're right. Family group is the one where it's got the 14 days. Okay. All right. So, all right. Do I have to?
But essentially, that first one is like, substituting for the functionality, that I mentioned, for me and my 2 Switches.
Right.
And it is more restrictive.
Right.
Because of what you already mentioned, James, because they feel like it's been taken advantage of. So it's like, okay, they're trying to thread a needle here. So we're doing, sort of something of a crackdown.
Right.
But we don't want to just present it as a crackdown, so it's like, oh no, but it's also something positive in itself because, like I said, it's going to make you're buying it for parents and those sorts of things who wonder, should I buy digital, should I buy physical?
Right.
In the past, they just offered that 5%. Kind of, monetary incentive maybe to go with a digital game instead. But now it's like, oh no, feel free to buy the digital because you can, have it be traded back and forth between siblings or, whatever, between yourself and your kid in the same way that a physical card can.
Yes.
And sort of have that, sort of added functionality, if you like, paper over the fact that in the background, it's like, this needs to be less flexible. It needs to be less abusable.
And I was wrong. So the family account does have to be present at every time you swap game cards. So they do have to be physically in proximity because it's done over, quote, local wireless.
So and that could be because it's different account. You're in the same family group,
but different accounts.
But you're talking about different Nintendo accounts. Whereas the first thing where the handshake only happens once is because it's the same account on both systems.
Yes, and that makes sense for that objective. Also, I'm gonna guess Nintendo's probably had to deal with some service calls of people like, somebody stole my account. How did they do that? I don't want to talk about it. Where this is like, oh, because you gave them access to it so they could play games that you bought on your system. I get it. But this is a lockdown, but they're also, and I mentioned this, they're putting this in, what's the word that we use for it? A simulacrum of the real world. Like the idea of physical cartridges, because that makes it more understandable. Because I'm going to guess right now, this feature is probably not widely used as it presently exists. This is a much more consumable feature to the average person. So they're going to feel like they're getting something new, something that they couldn't do with their games before. They could, they just didn't know how. This is a much more approachable process to that. So they're going to feel like, and
again, if you're dealing with kids, right, in terms of like explaining it to your kids, or sort of say how are we going to
share the game with your brother?
Should we get digital? Should we get physical? It kind of makes it's a more easy comparison, right? Because there's it acts as if it is one. There's no downside. Like it's not necessarily entirely accurate, but that's what they're trying to kind of put across.
The other parental concern that it might alleviate is, what if I want to buy a second Switch for my kid, and like I don't want to share my Switch with my kid anymore. But like, if I buy him a second Switch, or Switch for him, like I get him a Switch Amateur, I can't remember what they call it, the mini, the one that never sells, the one that doesn't dock,
the light,
the light, yeah. He won't have access to any of my digital games. Well, now it's not a concern. Now it's you just swap the game to them, and then they have it. They've got the game, and they're in your house, so you can go take it from them when they don't give you the game back. But also, like, hey, now when you go buy that nice Switch 2, why don't you just give the Switch to your kid, and then they can get games too? Like, it's a way to keep more devices in homes alive, because I'm going to guess they've got statistics that say the more living devices there are in a house, the more pieces of software you sell, which would make sense when you think about it. Like, but this decreases the barrier to, well, if I buy this for me, or is the kid am I going to have to let my kid play my game? No, you won't actually. Just send them the Switch card. Now, what's interesting though is they only showed physical games in the graphic. Will this apply to games that are digital only? We don't have an answer to that.
No, like I said, that's what's interesting about that, in terms of, it did seem like, that's why I mentioned like the goal points going away, with the physical games. It kind of seemed like that's mostly what they were thinking about. But obviously goal points were on every digital, but you could be buying something that's never had a physical release, or certainly sometimes they won't come till significantly later from some boutique publisher or whatever. So there's still more to be said, but that's the point. It felt like this was maybe broaching a subject, and you're getting some of that kind of exposition out of the way here, where, some of that time is going to be at a premium with the Switch 2 presentation on the second, because it's just much more about, everything's got to pop. It's got, you've got to make a much bigger impression. This is like the low stakes part, right, of the equation, this presentation. So it makes sense you get some of this stuff, the app as well, because again, it with that, what we were saying about the app, it just kind of sounded like, well, this is going to have a point, at least more so,
right,
once the Switch 2 details are right. Now it's just like, we're giving you a 6-day head start to download it. I don't know, maybe that may overstate how much more interesting it's going to get, but it did, that was the impression that was conveyed.
Yes. See, is there anything else I want to touch on?
We should mention quickly Marvel Cosmic Invasion.
Yeah, that was on the list. There were 2 Disney things that got announced today. Marvel Cosmic Invasion is a .emu new side scroller where you pick 2 characters, and it's a Marvel side scrolling brawler.
Well, it's
from the makers of Shredder's Revenge.
Yeah, tribute games, right? That's the Shredder's Revenge people, and it's certainly the pixel art graphics have a fair amount in common. Obviously, dealing with Marvel Comics characters, but look pretty, as you'd expect from that comparison, look pretty nice, and I would imagine should be pretty reliable in the gameplay department as well.
Yep.
Are we expecting tribute games of Simpsons arcade in like 2-3
just
years?
Keep going around all
it does,
the properties that
Konami
did.
especially because he's still Disney, so and
Konami.
No, just do all the Konami stuff from years past. But like you said, in that case, Turtles would have been Paramount. Is that right?
Yes,
but in this case, to be talking about. They with the Fox acquisition, they took possession of Simpsons, Disney.
It if you want to go to the Simpsons land in Universal Studios, there is a finite amount of time on that, I think. So enjoy. Like, part of me really wants to go just because
Simpsons land and not Itchy and Scratchy Land?
I don't know.
Ever since I saw that episode, I'm like, if I could have one wish, and it definitely wouldn't get monkey pawed, it would be to park in the Itchy lot at Itchy and Scratchy Land.
So I almost promise you that when that deal expires and Disney can have them in the park, there will be Itchy and Scratchy in the park on like their Halloween session.
Finally, I'll be able to go to Searing Gas Pain Land.
It's like there's almost enough irony in there. They're going to be like, yeah, we have to do it. Let's do it. Let's put Itchy and Scratchy out on Halloween in Disneyland. It's going to be the worst. I can't wait. The other Disney thing that got announced was this weird, like, potion making game where it's about Disney villains because they're on this weird villain kick lately. And you serve them potions, but they're all dressed in modern clothes. It's a super strange game. It's like, what the fuck is this? That was our It's Out Now game, by the way. I don't know. It looked
well. There was
funny.
That and the Crypt of the Rift of the Necrodancer.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, another Necrodancer game as well.
Yeah, which it's been out for a bit, away from consoles, but it was out today for Switch, and it's going to have like other like indie DLC kind of stuff, with like Celeste, and as it showed Meat Boy at some point and whatnot. So, I mean, looks pretty cool. I think it reviewed pretty well, its initial release away from consoles again. So that's something to keep an eye on, I think.
Yeah, and of course we mentioned it, but Z to A got a 3-minute trailer that didn't answer almost any of the questions we had about it last week.
Well, it's just really one key aspect of moving it. First of all, apparently it's like No More Heroes. You are working your way up a list from the bottom, right? So
that is the titular Z to A.
That is, yeah. So that was kind of interesting, but also just like, okay, it's like there's this day-night cycle, and at night time is where you battle other trainers. That's so it's like in the during the day, it's more like the original Legends, where it's like you're just dealing with wild Pokemon. But then at night now, you've got this trainer battle element. So you have a significant, bit of information and a significant aspect of the game that hadn't been touched on before. But yeah, it didn't, especially because it didn't, again, elaborate on, the date any further. It's still just late 25 and stuff. It would feel like the most, huge update, especially when that Pokemon Presents was only, a matter of weeks ago.
Yeah, they could have just put this in there. It's very weird, and it doesn't, which again, the fact they didn't really get into like, okay, but what's the drive here? What's all the stuff? Like, is this game also going to show up in 6 days? Like, I feel like it's low. It's like Metroid feels like a sure thing. It's going to show up again. I would say 30%. Z to A shows up in the.
It may be in a quick fashion. Maybe it was like, oh yeah, and don't forget, you could play this on your Switch too as well. Because having been in that Pokemon Presents and this Direct,
that's true.
It would feel a little bit like going to the well one too many times to linger on it for anything more than.
We still don't have a date.
Something very
for the
brief.
third time in a row. It would be very funny if they just said still late. 25. All right. I mean, there's some stuff we didn't touch on, but this was a pretty meaty Direct, all things considered.
Yeah, we can just touch on the sizzle real quickly. It was High on Life, Star Overdrive, Wandering Village, King of Meat, Luz Lagoon Summer, and Fantasy Life I, The Girl Who Steals Time.
So that Fantasy Life, all right. So I want to say Wandering Village looked kind of cool, but I need to see more. But all right, Fantasy Life. That game is a disaster. Like, that game has been talked about for so fucking long. It got delayed at least once. And then in an interview they put out talking about the delay, they basically said the gameplay didn't feel good, so we turned it into an open world game. 10 months ago. Just a heads up on what that game. But boy, like I thought it was my phone. Like it looked funky and weird visually.
No, there was footage in there that seemed to show major frame stuttering, which is curious in a pre-packaged trailer.
I pulled it up on my work laptop just to confirm the rendered YouTube trailer, like not anything streaming, like uploaded to YouTube after the fact. And it looked the same, and I'm like, oh no. Oh no. That game looks cooked. So look forward to that. Kind of a short scissor reel, actually. I mean, like, High on Life's been out for over a year on other systems, so, like, it didn't need
Is High on Life
time.
Actually really, is actually legitimately funny, or is it just kind of terrible? Because I heard good things about it when it came out, so.
I think my vibe on it is it has funny moments, and it's got stuff that they put in there that's pretty good. There's a series of jumps that you could do for speed running, and they realized people would do that, and so everybody starts, all the talking doodads you have go, oh, look at this guy, he's trying to speed run, wow, good job.
That's pretty funny.
But like, yeah, it's gonna be a lot of that. It's gonna be a lot of Justin Roiland humor, yelling at you in his Morty voice. So it depends on how you feel about that stuff.
Yep.
So that'd be my read on it from what I've seen. Like, what I saw, there were moments where I had a chuckle. But yeah, I don't know. It's if you really dig his stuff, you'll probably dig this game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Seems probable. I think that's pretty much it. So I'm going to call this a show because we're almost at 2 hours anyway, but I want to talk a little bit about next week. So next week, the direct is on Wednesday, correct?
April 2nd, right?
Yep.
Yep. So,
yeah, I'm available.
All right. If we can record that on Wednesday, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch it. Yeah, I'm going to watch. Yep. Best Buy Canada announced they're going to start taking pre-orders on the 2nd. So, just be ready when the direct ends to try to get your pre-order in if you want one.
Yep.
So we can recount if we all made attempts and our success rate. So we're definitely going to get all the info we need. So yeah, we'll talk about that on Wednesday. I'll probably take the episode after recording and then just do the flash edit and upload it. And then there might not even be an article that night, because depending on when we finish, that might be like 1 a.m. my time, and I'll have to work on Thursday. So like the article might not come till Thursday afternoon, but it'll be on the feed at a minimum. So you'll be able to watch it or listen to it there. Sorry, a very loud truck just went by and distracted me. So yeah, that's our plan for that. For the retroactive, I'm going to say 2 weeks after next week's episode is when we're going to try to do it. I downloaded it. I haven't started it because I played 46 hours of Xenoblade Chronicles X since the game came out a week ago. 46 hours.
Wow, so you're a good like 25% into it, huh?
I just got the Skell an hour ago. Can't even fly. I just got that fucking Skell. I'm only in chapter 7. It's the worst. Oh my god, there's still so many quests to do. I go look at New LA and it's just covered in orange quest markers and I go, no, god! I have to go hang out with Yelv again. We're about to have the major Yelv event. You should do Yelv's quest, everybody. Go do Yelv. Don't do Fog's. Fog's a goddamn idiot. He's too pure for this world. We should chuck him in a volcano. But Yelv, you need to do Yelv. You need to do Yelv. I'm just gonna say that. But yeah, we'll get back to the Xenoblade X talk, I guess in 2 weeks. I'll have definitely finished it by then at this rate. I'm slowing down. I am slowing down. I haven't done a 13-hour day since day 2. But yeah, I'll be done by then. I hope. Oh my god. Please, I'm begging you. So I think that'll give us enough time to play it. It'll give us time to remind you to play it. Somebody went and created the thread in the Discord for us, so it is already out there. You can go find it in the Nintendo World Report Discord. There's a link to it at the top of Nintendo World Report under chat if you've never been. The there's all kinds of stuff going on there. Let's see what these guys are up to. They talked about the Direct live at the time, which was always really fun. I was at the office, so I couldn't do that, but that's okay. John, I have put an image of Suezo in the chat for your dereliction. Yeah, they're still talking about it right now, so there you go. They're comparing it to the whole Matric sharing games on Xbox One.
Yeah.
Remember that whole mess?
Oh, I do. Indeed.
This is obviously different though, because that was physical games. Oh, and also apparently Ubisoft and Tencent just created a subsidiary. Where Tencent's investing $1.16 billion to manage franchises like Assassin's Creed. In case you were curious about the joke I made last week about Ubisoft not existing in a few years. That was where it was coming from. But now that it's out there, that's where it was going. So yeah, you can go see all that in Nintendo World Report Discord. And of course, under the discussions forums, you can find the retroactive for Wonder Boy and the Dragon's Trap, because I realized I hadn't said what the game was. We'll be doing that 2 weeks after, so that episode will come out on the 2nd. Normally it's the 3rd. We'll be doing that on the episode that comes out on the 20th of April. So we'll be recording it on the 17th of April. So play it, get your comments in, and we will talk about it then. Emails. Emails. Where do you send your emails? Why, that's RFN at NintendoWorldReport.com. I'm going to say it again. RFN at NintendoWorldReport.com. One more time for those of you in the back of the class. RFN at NintendoWorldReport.com. You can send your last minute Switch 2 stuff, or after the Switch 2. So we're going to record the Switch 2 Direct that night. So after it happens, you can send us questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, blah, 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 blah. You know the routine. Games. You can send all that stuff to RFN at NintendoWorldReport.com. And I don't know how much we're going to get to on the show, because this 36-minute Direct turned into a 2-hour long episode, and there's no new console to talk about. Yeah, content is the C button here, and we will not lack for it, I suspect. So you can send them. We might not get to them. We might get to them the next week. We'll see how it goes. But that is RFN at NintendoWorldReport.com. I think that's the 15 syllables, 18 syllables. Greg, music.
Oh, sure. Yeah, well, a couple of things. First of all, I do want to mention new episode of TOIP's Radio Trivia Podcast Edition is available from NintendoWorldReport.com. Yeah, for the first in a while. So that was good to hear, and well worth listening to if you obviously like video game music, you like guessing where it comes from. Pretty tricky. Did not fare very well in that one. That's all I'll say about that. My performance in that regard. But yes, well, I mean, new Rhythm Heaven. You're gonna have to pick something from the Rhythm Heaven series as a result of that. So, and we haven't done a lot actually from it, based on my perusal of the database of the nearly 10 years of closing music that we've done. Surprising, really. So, I went with something that's on balance. You could go back and forth and stuff, but I would say this is something from my favourite of the games, which is the Wii game. Which I think in Japan was everybody's Rhythm Tengoku or something like that. Rhythm Tengoku. Yep. But for me, I'm going with Flockstep. Now, this is a little bit different this is going to be the music only, right? Not the perfect mix where you actually have like the player input sounds in it, which they kind of are part of the music. So it's kind of, I'm not like that. I hesitate to go with a version that takes those out, but I think in the case of Flockstep, it is, I think, better, because obviously the nature of that, if you don't remember, is like you're a bird in a giant flock of marching birds with these like really like pounding marching noises over the music, which it does kind of overpower it a bit. So it's just nice to hear it without that, so you can kind of take in. I mean, again, the thing about Rhythm Heaven is that synthesis of the visuals and the sound, the music itself, and then the more kind of sound effect, like, kind of things that are associated with the player input, how it all comes together and how it kind of teaches you the rhythm that you're expected to do, but then also fucks with you at a higher level when it's trying to make it difficult. Like, it's such an exquisite balance and synthesis of things. It is kind of sad to take any element of it out of that context, but here, we must. And I think, the song works really quite well relative to, a lot of the others, out of context. So I thought it was a good choice.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that, it is time for us to go. Bye, everybody.
Later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.